Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Straight Talk for the Soul series. I'm Cari Murphy, your host and the creator of this global broadcasting community. I'd love to extend a bright and a beautiful good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you joining us from around the world. I want to thank you for giving us the gift of your time, your energy, and presence today. There is a collective energy, a group frequency and container today and every day here. And today you're contributing to it. And so thank you for that. I want to remind you, I never feel like it's an accident that you landed here. And specifically today, I do feel our souls are gently or not so gently guiding and nudging us in the directions that will support us best. So thank you for honoring that and for choosing to be a part of today's show, whether you're listening live or to the recording. You're going to be very grateful that you did because Wendy Kennedy is back. I so enjoyed my time with her and the P's last time she was here. She has such a loyal following due to the tremendous authenticity and purity and clarity of her work, and so I'm honored to share her light with all of you joining us today. Remember, you can listen to all of these shows now on iTunes and on YouTube. And then when you register by joining our community website, you'll receive the daily information, call-in details, replays, lots of gifts. And I also ask you to join me in my intention to really support millions of way showers around the world by sharing news of this show to anyone that you feel would benefit from it. There's a lot of love here, and my intention is to hold a very sacred and safe space for all of you to come to and be reminded of your light, your power, your creative potential. And I feel like together we're walking this journey hand in hand and heart to heart, and together we heal, we expand, grow, transcend, explore, remember, and we laugh and we play and we get ignited. And so today's no exception. With Wendy, we're going to talk about reclaiming your authentic self, because it's easy to get caught up in the illusionary stories of who we think we are rather than perceiving ourselves as infinite beings of divine light and love. And so the ninth dimensional Palladian collective, the P's, through Wendy, are going to offer some simple tools to support you in reclaiming your authentic self. Wendy's going to offer a language of light activation from the guides to assist in expressing your authentic self. So if you're ready to allow the language of light and the galactic light codes to assist you in nurturing and empowering yourself to create a balanced life, then stick around. That's what we're doing today. And I encourage you to set an intention for whatever you want to experience today. How do you want to feel? What do you want to embody more of? How do you want to feel when this is all done today? Set those intentions and get the energy flowing and going. And so let me tell you a little bit more about Wendy, and we'll dive in. Wendy Kennedy is an intuitive. She's an empath and a channel. And for more than 2 decades, she's used her gifts and abilities to work with beings in other realms and dimensions, assisting others in recognizing and releasing old patterns and helping them to live more whole and integrated lives. The clear and compassionate wisdom shared through Wendy facilitates a shift in perspective from separation and limitation to connection and multidimensional existence. In 1995, Wendy began channeling, working first with her own angelic guides before becoming reacquainted with the ninth dimensional Palladian collective, whom she primarily channels at public events and like today, and in her private sessions as well. She also works with beings from Sirius, Lyra, Arcturus, Cassiopeia, and Andromeda, as well as other higher dimensional celestial beings. And in addition to the direct channeling, the guides work through Wendy with the language of light and the galactic light codes, which are symbols that represent this cosmic language. I'm very excited she's here. We will be taking some calls today. Press *2 to raise your hand if you called in by phone, and leave your questions or comments also in the webcast if you've joined us by computer. And also send in the feedback along the way here. We love hearing from you. I want to know how you're feeling, what you're sensing, what you're experiencing. And now, please join me in extending waves and waves of love and light and appreciation to Wendy as I welcome her back to the show. Wendy, welcome back.
Oh, thank you, Cari. Hi, everybody.
Welcome back, Wendy. I had, a question that just popped up to ask you that I don't think I asked you before, Wendy, and I want to start here. Before you started channeling the angelic guides and the Palladian Collective, how did you grow up, Wendy? I mean, did you have any indication at an early age that you'd be doing this now?
Not really. I mean, I wasn't someone who has memories of being very psychic as a child or anything like that, but I was always very sensitive, emotionally sensitive, I think, and I was always drawn to UFOs. And I don't know if you remember the little pamphlets you would get where you could choose a book. I'm going really old school today. Where you could choose a book and you would order the book through school.
Yes.
To read. I can't, was it Scholastic or I can't remember the name
Something
of it.
like, I remember though. We talked about being the same age, so yes, I remember.
So I would choose the books on UFOs and on ghosts and like all the paranormal stuff. And I was always fascinated by it, and so was my father. So, anything that had to do with Egypt and the pyramids and things like that I was always drawn to. I can remember watching In Search of and all the stuff on Project Blue Book. So it was always a fascination, and I was always drawn to it. But as far as my abilities go, those didn't really start until I was in my 20s. That didn't really open up for me. So I had just a very normal childhood.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. And, I mean, now you've been really devoted to this for, I want to say you're closer to 25 years now. So for people who are new to you, let's talk about, I mean, the primary group that you bring through is the Palladian Collective. I mean, that's only one group, Galactic group, but it seems like they're the ones who really guide and direct you with the information most. And you call them the P's, which we love. Tell us who the P's are and, when they started coming through for you.
So they are a collective of beings. There are about 2,500 in the group, 2,600. And instead of incarnating to a planet the way that we do to Earth, they actually align with the stellar blueprint for a star, Alcyon, in the Pleiades system. And they're here to kind of steward us, to help us, to support us as we go through this ascension process. And there is an aspect of me that is a part of this collective, and this is part of what I agreed to do before I came. And the guides actually work with tone and sound. So later on you'll hear me channel, and their dialect is different than my own. And it's not any one particular dialect. It's just tones that they can modulate. It's kind of elongated vowels. And they do this to change the resonance, and that affects you at a cellular level. So it's as if you're getting a healing. And when I first started working with them, they sounded different. They used different tones and different vowels, and then they sounded far more British. And then they shifted in the tones that they were using, and it was very uncomfortable for me because I had to use muscles that I'm not used to using in my jaw. And so now they're kind of somewhere in the middle. And it changes from time to time, and really it's just so that they can work through frequency with you, through sound. When I first started, it was my angelic guides who came through first, and there were some other celestial beings. And then the Pleiadians didn't come in for about 9 months, and they were waiting for me because I was channeling through automatic writing. And it got to a point where I was hearing the words well in advance of what I was writing, and the writing just kind of became cumbersome. And they said, you need to put the pen down and you need to just speak, because when I first tried to channel, I was trying to do it verbally and it wasn't happening. And that's when I had to start with the automatic writing. But I got to a point where the words could just come out. And once that happened, the Pleiadians showed up because they were waiting so that they could work with me with tone and sound. So, over the years, there have been different beings who've shown up from different star systems, from Arcturus, Lyra, Sirius, Orion. And then, I think probably about 5 years ago, they said we want to do something to help integrate the galactic archetypes. And then more beings from different systems started showing up. So we had Cassiopeia and Andromeda. So there are really 7 major star systems where beings come through, and with the language of light, they all kind of come in depending on what we need, and that archetypal energy, how they've worked through the same patterns, the archetypal patterns that we're working on. As they come through, they are able to infuse the wisdom of their experience into the language of light. So we're kind of getting little recipes or how-tos to move through that energy. And so when I do the language of light, all of these different beings start showing up. So it's not just the P's during that. It's definitely a more collaborative effort, shall we say. And I'm sure we'll do some activations, and you'll notice that it definitely shifts.
Yeah. There's a lot of feedback already in the webcast, Wendy, and Crystal wrote in, and she's talking about exactly that. First of all, she said, major shifts and an indescribable growth since connecting with you and the P's in 2014. So a lot of praise in this first. But then to get to the question, she's talking about exactly what you were mentioning, just the connecting with our stellar family. She wants to know, okay, could the P's put in a nutshell, why is it important to connect to our galactic and stellar families at this time? What is, or, that can come through you directly, Wendy, or, I don't know if you want to bring in the P's now, but I just figured it was relating to what you were just talking about. What's so important about us connecting with them at this time?
Well, I can tell you what they're telling me, so I'll do a little translation before I actually get out of the way and bring them in. But they're just saying because it gives us a sense of home and connection. It's a very familiar frequency, and that allows us to settle just a little bit, because when we feel isolated, when we feel separate from everybody else, we feel like we have a different program, a different perspective of reality, that gets very difficult, and it can almost be heartbreaking for many of us that we just feel like we don't belong here. So it helps to open us up a bit, but it's important to remember that we came here to have a very human experience, and we're bringing the knowledge from that system here. So it's not that we're trying to leave and go elsewhere. We already know what that experience is like. We're trying to ground here and bring that wisdom here. So, I know I had this experience when I first started to channel, and I had all of these memories starting to surface. It was very, very difficult. And you're like, I don't want to be here. I want to be home. Home is out there. And what they taught me was that, this lifetime is about bringing home here, about bringing that connection to source energy, which is our sensation of home, and grounding it into this life. And that relieves all of the pain, all the suffering, all the stress that we're feeling from that sense of separation. And that happens by going inside.
Absolutely. Yes. And I know anybody who's listening to a show like this, we've all felt that. And we still feel that even when we start to open up to these connections to our galactic families. But that's why, Wendy, it felt so important, the different communities that I've created, and specifically this one, for people to feel that sense of connection and remembrance, because it can be a little bit lonely and isolating when, a great percentage of the population isn't as sensitive as we are, And so, no, I'm grateful that you brought that through, and I'm grateful that the P's are here. I wanted to ask you about the P's. What would you say their primary principles are? What are they primarily sharing, aside from, the aspect of home or that homecoming feeling? But what are some of the main messages?
When I first started channeling, it was a lot of big picture information. And they said we had to do that at the beginning to get you to open up, to realize that you were part of something more. And now that we're open, really within the last 5 years, the message has changed. And the focus maybe is perhaps a better way to say that. The focus has changed, but the message has always been consistent. It got very small in terms of where you're focusing, and it's about focusing inside and focusing on yourself and knowing that you are basically in control of how you perceive the world and your reaction to it. And really they're here to help us to feel empowered, to teach us to be our divine selves, our authentic self, and that's letting go of all the limiting beliefs. So for them, it's really about teaching us to integrate, which is releasing judgment. And so they give very practical tools and advice on how to do that. And they say this process of ascension is very simple. They say the mechanics are simple. All you have to do is to be grounded so that you can allow full source energy to run through the body, because if you are not grounded, you've closed off that root chakra, then energy can't flow all the way down, and you can't pull up earth energy, and earth energy sustains you. So they said you have to be grounded, and that will help you with discernment, and you have to be heart-centered. And if you're heart-centered, then you're present. If you're present, you're heart-centered. And if you do those two things, they say everything else takes care of itself, because in the moment, you'll know exactly what you need to do if you're present. If you're in your head, that's a whole other story.
Yes, we can complicate things quite a bit that way, huh? One thing I heard you say, just a little bit. Wendy, I've heard you say something that I really loved, that reality is really just an exploration of frequency, and that the game here on planet Earth is really revolves around polarity integration, and how we descended into density, forgot who we were, and now we're ascending in frequency to remember. But I thought it was fascinating. I heard you describe it sometime that this is actually the third version of Earth, and that we have genetic material from thousands and thousands of worlds here on the planet today. I thought that was pretty fascinating. You went on to share that we're no longer in the third dimension. Where are we now?
Well, they say that we're in the fourth, and the fourth is what they call the transitory dimension. Because the third dimension has very fixed rules to the game, how we perceive reality, how we operate, and so does the fifth. But the fourth is very malleable, and you can apply 3D rules to the game onto kind of the 4D matrix. And you can also apply the 5D rules. So it's a way for you to kind of play around and try a little bit of this on. We're not ready to let go of the old. So it's a way to kind of explore, because in that third dimensional range, and it's just a frequency range, that density is so fixed, and it's very difficult to stretch beyond that. But when you're in the fourth dimensional range, it's a little more malleable, and you can kind of play with it. So some moments you might feel like you're able to expand time, and in that case, you're stepping into more of those 5D rules of the game. You're letting go of the notion of time altogether, and in the higher dimensions, time doesn't really exist. It's a construct of 3D. So they say right now we're still in 4D and we're playing. We'll be here for a little while, but we'll start to apply more 5D rules to the game onto the 4D matrix.
Well, and it's an exciting time, and I think anybody who's listening to a call like this is really supporting that. So what do they say about the galactic light codes that you bring through? Specifically are intended for what? Is it for to upgrade the frequency? Is it to clear things out? Is it a combination of things? What's the purpose of the galactic light codes?
Really, it's to align your frequency, because they talk about this idea that we have, that we've got to clear, we've got to fix, and that's kind of an old way of thinking about it. Because if we simply realign our frequency and we keep aligning it, what happens is we're no longer feeding that old energy, those old patterns, and they just naturally dissolve. Because, again, our entire reality is a projection of those stories that we tell ourselves. So when we don't keep feeding the story, they just kind of fall by the wayside. And you're putting your energy into what you want, and then that starts to get pulsed out and gets reflected back as your physical reality. So really, it's interesting now that, I really think about it. When I first started, they would talk about things in a very 3D way. And then they would kind of give examples in both ways about how you create your reality. Oh, you can see your blocks. You can change these ways of speaking about things. I'm not good enough, so you're going to change it to I'm good enough. So they used to talk about releasing blocks because that's where we were mentally. And they said around 2011, there was a period where they started talking about, really, you don't have to do that. All you have to do is move to the new frequencies. So they would still continue to talk about things in both ways and give examples of how to do it both ways in the moment. And now they're more to, let's just move to the new frequency. So they've kind of brought us along, and we're ready just to simply move to new frequencies. And these light codes, really what they are encoded with is those higher energy signatures that we want to move towards. So let's say you have that block, if you will, of I'm not enough. So what they're doing is sharing with you the frequencies of I'm enough, I'm deserving, I'm lovable, and that's all encoded in the activations as it's spoken, and then in the symbols as you see it. And people always ask what's the difference between the codes and the activations. Really, it's the same thing. It would be as if somebody was reading a book to you, or you were just seeing the symbols on the page
images.
And you were reading it. Yes.
Right.
So, there's no difference.
So why not have both, right?
Yes, and well, some of us are visual.
Yeah.
Some of us are, auditory. We hear things better than we see them, but both will get us to the same place. And these symbols and the activations, we don't understand them, so the mind can't get involved at the ego level. So really what they do is they speak to the soul, because the language of light is a universal language that's understood by all life. It's comprised of light, photonic energy, sound, sacred geometry, and cosmic information. So there are multiple levels of information that's all encoded in here. And, the ego mind was set up to limit so that we could have this perception of separation, so we could play in third density. And we're trying to move out of that. So these symbols bypass all those programs, and the soul recognizes the language. And I think, people will hear it when we get into the activation. There are different dialects for the language of light, but we still understand the language. It would be like someone speaking English in Australia or the UK or in America. We still understand it, but it's different. It has a slightly different cadence or different tones that get used, sometimes some words, but we still get it.
Wendy, for someone who's wondering, and we've got quite a few people who've written in asking about, I'll just read the most recent one here because there's a whole stream of them. What are some things that would keep us from having a direct connection or contact with these beautiful beings of love and light once we realize that we are more than our physical bodies? What do you think it is? I know I've heard you mention, and I know it was the case for me in the past, sometimes we have these unconscious fears of connecting with galactic beings that can keep us from actually experiencing it until we're ready. But what do you say to that? What do you feel would keep someone from that direct connection?
I think that's absolutely true. Sometimes we keep things from ourselves because we want to make sure we have an opportunity to work with certain frequencies, that we have opportunities to integrate under certain conditions. So we might not want to have expanded knowledge yet because we still want to deal with, say, another person, and they're not ready to go to that level. And we want to make sure in this particular lifetime we're working with that. There can be all kinds of reasons why we won't move forward to that expanded knowledge. Sometimes it is fear-based. I would say most of the time it's fear-based. We're afraid of being manipulated. So that might mean that we have to really work on learning to trust ourselves and use our own discernment. And so we'll play that out with other humans until we get good at holding boundaries and learning to trust ourselves. Boundaries is a big one that people fear. They're afraid that they're going to be taken over, that they're not going to have any free will. So sometimes we'll hold off, and then we work with other humans. Any issue you have at the human-to-human level, you will play out interdimensionally. And you can clear it or integrate it either way. So maybe you hold really good boundaries with your ETs or with your celestial friends, and then you learn how to do that with humans. all right? Or it can go the other way. So you learn to do that with humans, and you feel like, okay, I'm safe now. I can open up. I know how to hold my boundary.
Right.
Persecution's a big one. I'm going to be persecuted for using my psychic gifts, because for many of us that's happened more than once, and it didn't end well. And
it didn't end well.
You know, some hangings, some burnings, you know, painful deaths. And then I think for many of us also, it's how is that going to change the nature of my relationships?
Yes.
You know, what's my family going to think about it? How are my friends going to react? Is everybody I, you know, will everybody I love and care for leave me? So there's a lot of fear of that as well.
That's great. I mean, I think you really touched on a lot of things that a lot of us can relate to, all of those things. I mean, moving into this arena, you can kind of open yourself up to judgment, to all kinds of things that, you know, requires a cultivation of inner discernment and confidence and all of those things as we're expanding into these higher frequencies. There are quite a few people, Wendy, in the webcast sharing that they're feeling kind of heavy today or disconnected. And, you know, I would say there's quite a few people that are sharing that. And people are saying grounding's not working today, feeling very sludgy, no passion, crying, feeling lost. Where is all this coming from, Wendy? Do you have any idea?
Well, there's a lot going on the planet at the moment, and clearly.
Yes.
and we are, you know, our now moment that we experience is based on the frequency of the collective, and then the stories that we tell ourselves about who we think we are, our personal history. That all shapes the foundation for our experience. And so we're also going through this sector of space where it's high in photonic energy, which means that all that stuff that's been buried has an opportunity to come up. And then you combine it with the cycles that we're going through normally with the moon and with the solstice and the equinoxes and all these natural cycles, that these rhythms that we encounter help to bring up more of this stuff. So I think that's probably part of it. I think the piece can probably speak a little more directly to some of the energies around the solstice, because that's something that I suspect is creating some of this as we prepare. Because the solstices are very powerful times, and we receive a lot of information from the sun during this time, and we're already getting a lot of information from the sun. The sun's kind of the metronome that keeps us on track, keeps all the planets in rhythm, and sends instructions of kind of here's what's going on, here's what we're doing. It would be like a conductor of a symphony.
Right.
And so the solstices are very important because we do receive packets of information. And as we're going through this sector of space, it's affecting all of the planetary systems. It's really affecting the sun. And the guides say we're actually receiving different radiation from the sun that we've never experienced. Some of it can't be measured yet, but it helps us. It prepares us for this ascension process. And it's natural. It's normal. This is what always happens when we go through this sector of space, which we do in the grand cycles.
Right. And so the ascension that we're going through right now, the beings that you bring through, whether it's the P's, the Palladian Collective, or the others, they've already been through these ascension cycles. And so it sounds like, from what I've gathered, is that the information they want to bring through is just to help us because they've been through it.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
And
some of them are from the future. You know, some of them, some are from the future, some are from the past, because in the higher dimensional ranges there isn't any time. So it's always kind of fascinating to me, because we're thinking, oh, well, this must be happening in Sirius right now. But really, if we were to look at it from a linear timeline, it wouldn't be that. It wouldn't be that group that we would be connecting with, because some of them are from the future, or some of them are from way back. So they're all showing up to help right now, because what is happening here is we go through this ascension process. It allows us access to a completely different level of compassion. The guides always say that our ability to access compassion is so much stronger because this system is so diverse and our lows are so low that we have a lot of compassion for others when they're suffering, because we know just how awful it feels. They have compassion, but they can't relate in the same way. So they always say that the bandwidth is so great for our compassion compared to theirs, even though the frequency is the same, our ability to hold it. And so when we really hold it, it's so transformative. And when we master this, when we go through this ascension process, we then share the information with the rest of the universe, and it actually will create universal change. It will help other systems that are trying to go through this, that don't have the benefit of all this genetic material to kind of work through and try different things. When you have genetic material, you also have the emotional experiences of the DNA and the lineages. And so it's like having more potential to build, like having more Legos, and there are more things you can build with the Legos. As opposed to having 6, and that's all you get to work with. There are only so many things you can create. So having this broad emotional range allows us to find new potential ways of ascending. And once we do that, we share that compassion. It ripples out through the universe, and it helps other systems as well. An interesting thing they've been talking about lately is the stewardship of humanity and the role that we will eventually step into. It's a ways off, but being ambassadors, universal ambassadors, which is kind of hard to imagine when you look at the state of the planet right now. But as we learn and we grow, we're going to step into that role to be universal ambassadors.
Yes, and that's exciting. But I want to bring up something someone wrote in, and I think it's a good question to mention to you. With regard to the fogginess that a lot of people are feeling, or maybe even confusion or any of that, do you feel it's related to shifting dimensions or timelines?
I think there are lots of reasons for that, and I think I might let the piece talk on that one, because some of it is our environment. Some of it is our inability to stay present. And also, they've talked about it in the past where sometimes forgetting is a good thing, because you aren't attached to the story in the same way. You're not going back to the same story. I can't remember, so I have to go and check in this moment and make a new decision, instead of automatically going back to the default setting of what you think you already know.
Right,
and
right.
actually puts you in a greater state of power. I know just how frustrating it can be. I certainly have had those moments myself where I've had brain fog. I can't think of a noun. I can't think of a name. And some days are better than others. And I'm always, I'm doing my automatic writing. I'm like, what in the world? What do I need to do? This is driving me nuts.
Yes, I can relate, Wendy. And when I have to think of words sometimes on this show, it can be challenging because it happens for us all. And I think that that's an important message for everyone, that we are all going through these different waves of emotion and experience and fogginess and confusion, and then upliftment and enlightenment. I mean, there are just these waves of all of this. Someone's asking about grounding, Wendy, that they've tried all these different ways to ground, but they're asking for maybe a specific technique that maybe you use that works well.
For me, I pretty much follow what the guides have given me. So just imagining a tube of light, whether you want to see it as something that's coming in or in and running through your body, or if you want to see it as something that surrounds you, it's about 8 feet wide, and then just imagining that moving through you as well, going all the way down to the core of the earth, and then melding with the energy at the core of the earth, and then coming all the way up, back through every cell of the body, and then up, down up and out through the crown of the head to the center of the galaxy, and just seeing that repeat. So that's one thing I'll do. Sometimes I'll just go outside and sit on the grass and focus on something in nature. I love to listen to the birds chirp. They make me so happy.
Me too. Me too.
For me, that's very grounding. But also I'll just observe. I'll sit outside and I'll observe. Like I'll sit and look and see what's happening in the grass in front of me. And it's amazing when you do that, because there are little bugs and, little ants and ladybugs and things that you just don't notice otherwise. I'll look at, just really see what's happening with this blade of grass, how is this growing, and really connecting. And that's very, very helpful. And also breathing. It sounds so silly, but that's something I'm personally working on a lot at the moment, learning to breathe more consciously, because when we get upset, when we experience fear or trauma, we hold our breath a lot. So just breathing can help to open that up as well and help you to ground, be in your body.
Yes. Wendy, we have a couple of people saying they're having a hard time hearing you, and I certainly don't want to talk louder than you. Is there any way we could pump up your volume a little bit?
We go. Is that any better?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much. Oh, that's so much better. Laura wrote in, and she was talking about, you mentioned that point about being stewards of the earth, and she says, hello, beautiful ones. I have this knowing that I'm stepping into my authentic, loving, innocent power as a steward of the earth and a light bearer after having strongly resisted the power piece in this lifetime. Would love a message or guidance from Wendy on this. I think a lot of people feel that, where we've resisted that authentic power piece. What can you say about that?
I think I might let the piece come in to talk about this one, because I know they wanted to talk about the authentic self and really what does that mean? What does it mean? And how do you really step into it? So I think I'll go ahead and bring them in, and we'll see where we go.
Sounds good.
Yes, hello, dears. This is the Ninth Dimensional Pleiadian Collective, and it is a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to connect with you. So we are thrilled to be here, and we're very happy to answer your questions. Happy to talk about your authentic self, and really that's just a shift in your self-identity, not identifying with your stories. It's really about acknowledging yourself as a divine being of light, an infinite divine being of light, that there is no true boundary to who you are, because you are source energy. And this is just a temporary container so that you can have the illusion of separation. If you were boundless energy and you had no container, then you couldn't play in separation, because there is no such thing. So you need a vehicle to play in some level of separation, even in the higher dimensional realms, fifth dimension, sixth dimension. You have a container so that you can play some sort of separation. Now, in the higher realms, you have a greater awareness that in any given moment you can shift to the totality of your being. You can have an expanded awareness again. It's very difficult for you to do that here, because you buy into the story of density and your container. You get obsessed about your containers. How does it look? How is it dressed? Is it earning enough money? Is it enough? And you have this long list of things that you think you are supposed to be, or how you're supposed to act, or how you're supposed to think. And so, when you ask about stepping into your power, again, that's around all of these illusionary thoughts. Because when you drop the idea of what something is supposed to look like, when you drop the idea of how you're supposed to act, and, your markers of success, we'll talk about that in just a moment, then you step into your power. You step into your authentic self. I feel drawn to do this. I don't know how it's going to work out. I don't know what exactly it's going to look out, but I'm going to honor that inner calling. And so you step into it. That's you acting as a creative being. That's you acting from a space of authenticity, as opposed to the illusionary aspect of yourself. Now,
we're going to go off on a tangent for one moment because this is so important for many of you. You are measuring your success or failure by an old, outdated, masculine-dominated standard, all right? You're basing it all on the external. How much money do I have? How many friends do I have? How much X do I have? And it's all external, all right? And for us in the higher realms, our measure of success is how much love and joy are we experiencing in the moment. So if you can change your measure of success, that will change the actions that you take, all right? It will allow you to express more of your authentic self because your small self, if you will, your ego-driven self is what is trying to attain that external, that money, that house, that job, that relationship. Look at what those things represent to you. If it's money, then what does that represent? For most of you, it's freedom, flexibility. All right? So ask yourself what that represents, and then imagine just experiencing the frequency, because ultimately that's what you want. You don't care what container it comes in. You just want to feel free. And so if your measure of success is joy, there are so many opportunities to pull that in if you don't try to control how you think that is supposed to look. I'm only going to have joy if I have this relationship over here. Well, no, if you got that relationship, you'd actually find out that the vibrational experience of it is not joy. It's suffering. All right, that's not a good vibrational match, but you're trying to force it and make it happen, and it's just very painful. But if you decided to explore person B instead because you felt drawn to that person, even though it's not the typical person you'd be called to by ego standards, you allowed yourself to explore the frequency, all of a sudden, look, there joy is. It shows up. And you'd be thrilled because you like how you feel in the moment. So it's letting go of the container, if you will, the form, how something is supposed to look. That's what allows you to step into your power. So for one to decide that they want to be a steward or feel called to be a steward, it's following your instincts in the moment of what that means, because that is also changing. You might have this idea of what it is in the moment, but as you walk through it, there's a different task for me. Or you might have a memory of doing it in another lifetime. Well, this lifetime is vastly different. So what you might feel called to do as a steward will be different. And that will allow you to stand in more of your power. And at that point, you don't feel so concerned about what others are thinking, because you know how it feels when you do it. It feels good. It feels true. And that feeling, when you all experience it, you know it. It is so strong within you that your fears about what other people are going to think have little power. All right, you might still have a little bit of fear there, but you're so drawn and cold to step forward in that you don't pay it much mind. You acknowledge it and you do it anyway. All right. Mm-hmm. So that helps you to stand in your power. It helps you to do things that are a little different in this lifetime. Many of you will look around for archetypes of the things you want to create. You'll look for something where it already exists. So if it's a business, you're looking for a business model, but you're not seeing the one that you want. You're looking for a job. Well, there's no job that has the qualities that I'm asking for. That's because you're in a phase right now where you are creating new archetypes. You're creating new foundations. So there isn't going to be a model for you to follow. You're going to have to piece it together yourself. So that comes from checking inside and being more of your authentic self, to say, well, I know this doesn't exist, but I feel really drawn to create it. I'm going to do it. I don't know how, but I'm going to figure it out. That's another piece here for you all, is to trust in yourselves to figure things out. You're walking every moment forward as a vibrational exploration. You all find it difficult when your expectation doesn't match the actual vibrational experience, and then you label it failure because it doesn't match. Failure doesn't exist. There is only vibrational exploration. How big do you want the exploration to be is up to you. It can be very similar to the previous moment's exploration, or you can make it something vastly different. The universe doesn't care. It's only your mind that says it's possible or impossible. When something is vastly different vibrationally from the previous moment, that's what you call a miracle. That's what you call instant healing, all right? Because the vibration is so dramatic that the physical body changes immediately and dramatically. So you all have the potential in any given moment to experience this. It's just your mind that tells you it's hard or it's difficult or not possible.
Yes. Can you speak to the fogginess, the grogginess, the confusion that so many of our beautiful listeners are experiencing right now? What is this stemming from, do you feel?
So there are a number of reasons for this. Some of it is chemical. Some of it is in your environment. When you get the heavy metals in the body, that's causing some problems for many of you. So being conscious and detoxifying the heavy metals out of the body is important. But as you work on your frequency, the need for detox becomes less and less because the body will automatically do it through vibrational attunement. So if those lower frequencies, you're around them, you're not going to ingest them, all right? Or if you do, the body will not hang on to them, and the body will process through. You might find, to give you an example, let's say there's a particular area that your friends want to go and have a picnic at, but it's rather toxic. So that day you just say, you know what, I want to come, but, I can't come. You create some incident and you can't make it after all, or you're already busy. So energetically, vibrationally, you won't put yourself in those situations any longer. It's just not a match. Something else will keep you from it, all right? And usually in an easy way. So that's going on. But also, as Wendy was saying before, there is a component of it that you are forgetting some things so that you can go and get the updated version of the information. All right? What we mean by that is that think about having read something on the internet. Let's say there's a piece of information that you read, and somebody asks you about cars, and you've read about cars and how the engine works. And so somebody asks you again, and you can't remember. So you have to go back to the internet. Well, now they've updated the page. And now there's way more information on there about how everything works. And so now you go back and you give them the new information. So it's the same thing energetically, that you're going inside and you're getting the newest upgraded version based on your frequency and what you can access and comprehend at this moment. So that's also happening. Because before, vibrationally, you might not have been able to handle the full version of the story. Now if you go back and access it, there's a whole other version of the story that you're ready for vibrationally, and you can get all the extra detail. All right? It would be also like reading a kindergartner's book on, let's say, mythology. All right? And then you read the high school version on mythology, and then you go get the PhD version, which is vastly different, where it's no longer mythology and it's your history. All right? So it's which version are you ready for? So you will go into the Akashic records. You will go into the energetic realm where all records are stored, and you will access that information, the best information based on your frequency at the moment. So that's also happening. So if you are having a hard time being grounded, being foggy, if you're hard time and you're foggy, what we would say first thing, ground. All right, ground and connect. Most of you, you're just simply not. All right, if you are listening to us and you're drawn to us, you are stellar oriented. It's really as simple as that. Otherwise, you are probably going to go, if you're opening up to metaphysics, you're going to go study shamanism. You're going to go study native traditions and not so much the stellar aspects. So you'll have a different path.
You might go into herbology and not ever hear about the ET part of it. So you can pretty much assume that you're stellar-oriented if you're listening to us. And those who are stellar-oriented usually don't want to connect with Earth because it's a very painful place to be, or it can be. So you need to ground more, and especially during these tumultuous times where your stuff is coming up and you're walking down the street and you're passing by other people and their stuff is coming up. It's very easy to plug right on in, and by the time you know it, you've run your errands and now you're feeling agitated and irritated or sad and weepy, and you've closed off your energetic centers as a form of protection. Right?
Right.
So ground. Clear your field out regularly. How do you clear your field? Imagine it. Imagine white light coming in and just cleansing and washing everything away. And we suggest you do this multiple times a day, because think of it this way. If you were wearing a white outfit and you were walking down a dusty road for hours, you wouldn't be angry at your outfit for getting dusty and dirty, but you all do that with yourselves for picking up energy. It just happens. It's natural. But what do? You wash your clothes. All right? And you need to do the same thing with your field. Clear your field out. Especially if you've got family and friends who are going through a challenging time. It's very easy to plug into that, all right, because you love them and you want to help them. And some of you are helpers and healers, and the way that you think you can best help them sometimes is by trying to do it for them, which doesn't really work, but, you know, that's your pattern that you all are working on. So clear out your field, any visualization to see it washing away until it's all light and clear. That will help you. That will also help you be more present. Brain fog can happen because you're just simply not present. You're scattered. You're thinking about the past or you're thinking about the future. So bring yourself back to the present.
Okay. And as you mentioned, I think anybody who's on this call does have that stellar connection, or I don't think they would be here with us right now. Someone had asked an interesting question earlier about that, you know, about the galactic archetypal energy that Wendy has brought forth all that information. What they were wanting to ask you is, they said, I remember the P's saying that we are not necessarily Sirian or Palladian or Arcturian because that can limit us. So, and they asked, can you expand on this topic and help me understand why I actually feel these energies from people? You know, how can I look at my mother and think, oh, she's Sirian or he's this? You know, I think she just wants you to expand on this. How important is all this?
Well, the reason we have you orient yourselves as part of source energy is because to say, I'm Pleiadian, I'm Sirian, it's just another level of the game of separation. All right? It's a broader version, but it's still the same. Because you might have judgments that go on. Oh, those beings from Orion, they're awful. They're always trying to control everything. I don't like those Orions. It's another level of judgment that can be set up. And also, it's a way that you diminish your power. You are not claiming yourselves as an aspect of source. So this is why we always tell you to perceive yourselves as source energy. Now, having said that, you will incarnate into these different systems, and you will carry with you in this lifetime the records, the information, and the energy of that system. And that's how you recognize people to say, oh, my mother's Sirian. I recognize that she's carrying a lot of that energy in her field right now. Those are the archetypal patterns and the energies. So you will find that throughout your life, you will be drawn to different systems based on the archetypal patterns that you're working on. You may identify to say, oh, yes, well, I feel very Pleiadian. But all of a sudden, all this Sirian stuff is coming up. All of a sudden, you're drawn to the dolphins and the cetaceans. Oh. All of a sudden, you're drawn to some of the bird people, right, the avians. And it's because you are trying to access the energies of that system and embody it here. In other lifetimes, when you start accessing that information, you are doing so because you are trying to give yourself another version, another story of how you've played out the very same energy that you're playing out now. So let's say you have abandonment issues in this lifetime. In this lifetime, a lover may have left you and you feel abandoned. In another lifetime, you start having memories of that. Your parents died and you were orphaned and you felt abandoned. Looks very different on the surface, but the frequency is the same, and it gives you another way to perceive the energy so that you can integrate it here and now. You never see another lifetime of information unless it applies in some way to this lifetime. There are just too many records, and it doesn't really serve you just to have random information showing up. So there's always a benefit and a reason why you're looking at it. So either you are trying to get another viewpoint of that same frequency, or there is a gift, skill, or ability that you are trying to access in this lifetime. So maybe you have memories of healing in Egypt, and you are remembering how to access that healing energy again in this lifetime. So don't be shocked if it changes for you over time, that you say, I used to really align with those Pleiadians, and now I feel like the Arcturans are calling me. All right, I'm drawn to the Arcturus system. So it will change over time, and it is in some ways important for you to open up to some of the stellar energy just so that you see that you are part of a larger group and that there is a tremendous amount of love and support for you in the higher realms. Many of the higher beings of light, we stand back a bit because we don't want to interfere with your free will. We want you to be able to stand in your own divine light. We want to empower you. We don't want to do it for you. The Pleiadians, we had to learn our lesson the hard way. In our history, we learned that we couldn't do it for other species. We tried. It failed. It was painful. It was in our early development. So we now know that we can't do it for you. But we can be here of support to give you ideas and information to help you so that you can walk your own path. We can't walk the path for you.
We're getting some questions for you regarding where you dwell or reside. Is it in the ninth dimension? Do you also, are you on ships? We have questions about that. What do you say to those questions?
So we don't have physical form. We are beings of light. We don't carry a container in the way that you do. And we exist everywhere and nowhere at once. We don't experience time. We focus our energy and align it with the stellar body. So there is part of our consciousness that gets projected to Alcyon, the central star. And you could say we reside there because so much of our focus and energy is there. Understand that every planetary body, every stellar body is a consciousness. It's a being, just as you are, but it's collective energy. It's a bigger group. It would be more like your oversoul. Your oversoul is actually a group of many higher selves, if you will. Already we see a lot of brains wanting to shut down. You want to put your hands to your head saying, that makes my head hurt thinking about that. So, there are many of us that comprise one consciousness, if you will, that is your star, all right, or that is your planetary body. Each of you is adding some of your consciousness to Mother Earth and her grid system, her beingness. So we don't have physical forms. We don't have need for ships. Too often you all think that Pleiadians are only, the blonde Nordics that you hear about. All right. Some of the fifth dimensional Pleiadians are that way. There are also reptilians. There are also aliens. There are many different species, some feline. It's a very diverse system, different species. But as we said, we don't have needs of ship. If you saw us, you would see us as light, probably blue light, bluish to your eyes. But we don't often appear to you all in physical form. We just appear energetically to you.
So are there are there Pleiadians who are fifth dimensional, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th?
Yes.
And then they all present themselves in different ways?
Well, once you get up to the 10th dimension, where you're into the more what we would call the celestials, so they don't necessarily align with planetary or stellar bodies, all right? They're more galactic energies, universal energies, more universal energies than anything. So, yes, there are Pleiadians in some of the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. But you're also asking, for many of you, about that as a linear posed question. Some of that higher development comes from your linear perspective in a future timeline. All right? So and some of it's very ancient and past, and they're no longer there if you were to look at it now. So and this is true of all the systems. This is true of all the systems. There is a point in which you will find almost all the systems developed in some way with some level of consciousness.
Okay. Yeah, we could go off on a lot of those questions. I'm feeling guided. Are you open to taking live callers?
Yes.
Okay, because we have a lot of hands up. Okay, callers. For those of you who've called in by phone, press *2 to raise your hand, and if we could keep your questions, pretty clear, and please introduce yourself and ask your question, and perhaps a question that might benefit the group. That would be wonderful. Okay, I'm going to our first caller, and your area code is 702. 702.
Hello.
Hi, welcome to the call.
Hi, thank you, Cari. This is Diane.
Welcome, Diane. What is your question for the P's?
Well, my question has somewhat been answered by the topics being discussed. My question was, why do I relate so much within myself to everyone? I feel like I'm so scattered, and I was wondering if it was because I just wanted to relate, but I really feel like the topics that were just discussed really just opening up to the different realms. So I guess I will rephrase that and say my question would be, is there some message that you could have for me that would explain why this is happening at such a rapid pace for me?
That you're feeling connected to everyone and everything?
Yes, and no. Well, I felt that I was being scattered, but I feel that your explanation as to why people change with whom they feel connected to lent credence to my connection to most everything.
Well, let us say
so,
well, you're on the right path. Let's just say that, all right? So it's not that there's something wrong with you that you feel like you want to sample a little bit of everything, all right? There is part of humanity that thinks, oh, no, you can just pick one thing in your life and that's it. You got to do it till you die. How boring is that? But some will feel very stuck on their path and committed and will not allow themselves to explore. And as souls, you want to constantly explore. So how do you know if you like something if you don't try it? You don't. You've got to step into this body. You've got to be present in this body and then engage. Engage with different things. Some things you're going to like, some things you're not going to like, but you're not going to know until you explore it in this body. You can have some preconceived ideas and notions, sometimes from other lifetimes, sometimes from your genetic line, because your parent liked something, they told you it was good, and so you said, okay, well, this is good over here, so I'm going to like it, I'm going to try it. But, you might try it and say, no, that's not for me. That's great for my mother, or that's great for my sibling, but not for me. And, life is about exploration, and in any given moment you have the ability to make a new selection that is similar to the previous one. So in other words, if you like it, you keep doing it, or you make a course correction and choose a different frequency. You choose something that is different, and there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. So don't make yourself wrong. As
to being scattered, if you're feeling scattered, now that's different. That means that you probably need to ground. And for those of you that are emotionally sensitive, this is a challenge because that emotion gets triggered. You are learning how to hold your center. You are going to have to engage with the world, but you will find that some days are going to be easier than others, and you will build up your stamina. You can't stay isolated. Some of you just want to close the door and never come back out. So you're going to have to engage, but you're learning to strengthen that muscle of boundaries. When you are grounding and clearing your field out regularly, that will help you to up your stamina. And you'll be aware of what is yours and what is not yours. What happens for you all as sensitives is that you reach out energetically and you want to connect with others, but what you're connecting with is the outer layer of their ego, outer layer of their energetic field. You're accessing the records. So all of their fear programs. You've got your own fear programs running, and then what happens is like attracts like there. You feel them. It doesn't feel good to you because you know that sensation, that fear, and you go into contraction. And so that's why some of you will walk into a room and say, I just can't be around people. But the more you strengthen your core, the more you go inside and connect with source energy, the more that's your authentic self, your true resonance. Then when you engage with others, that's what you're engaging with. Their divine light. You move through their story. You don't identify with it because you're not identifying with that as part of yourself. You're saying, those are my illusionary programs. My true self, my divine self is who I am. And so then you start seeing the divine in everyone. Even the person who's doing the most dastardly deeds. You look at them and you identify them with their divine self. And so then it's not a problem to be in a room full of people, because then you're in a room full of divine selves and it feels really great. But this is where you're headed, and the process to get there requires you to acknowledge where your own thoughts and emotions are, all right, and then to keep going inside and connecting with source energy. How do you do that? Think of something that makes you smile. It's as simple as that, because when you're smiling, you're putting yourself back in your heart center. When you're in your heart center, you're present. If you're having a hard day, it might take you a while to get to that sensation of feeling lighthearted, warm, tingly, expanded. So we would say have a practice for yourself. And then also have some images that you know just make you laugh. They make you smile every time you look at them. Keep them in your phone. Create a folder for them. And then, you've got a toolbox or a kit to go to. The hard part is remembering in the times that you need it that you've got it. You just don't think about it. All right? So that will help you with a scattered feeling, all right, to ground, to heart center. Think of something that makes you smile. Just keep bringing yourself back to present moment. Don't get lost in the story, because that will put you in the past or the future. And literally what you're trying to do is send part of your consciousness off to a now moment on which you're not standing. And you're never going to be standing on it because it's gone if it's the past. And if it's the future, you're not there yet. So you're only standing ever on the now moment. And so it's like throwing energy away. So pay attention. What am I thinking about? Am I thinking about, how I'm going to respond to my friend when they stop talking? Or am I really listening to what my friend is saying in this moment? Where is your mind? If your mind is going and racing, then you're not present. So pay attention to that, and that will help you to not feel so scattered. All right?
There you go, Diane.
That's beautiful.
Yes, it was. Wow. Thank you, Diane, for bringing that forward, or helping us to bring that forward. So blessings to you, my dear, and thanks again. Okay, I'm going to go to our next caller. And, okay, your area code is 970.
Hello.
Hello, you are live with us. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Heather. Hi, Cari. Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
Yes, hello, dear.
Hi. So I have been meditating differently in the last few months, and I have been hearing this loud static sound in my head now all the time, and I didn't know if I wasn't tuning in properly, and maybe if I tuned in right, I would get an actual message. Or if you can I don't know what it means exactly. But I can always tune into that sound now.
So it's part of you opening up, all right?
Yes.
You're turning the volume up. Now you're just fine-tuning the dial a bit, all right? So you'll get there.
Okay.
So don't worry that, you're doing something wrong. So we would say be really clear. What do you want to know about? What are you curious about when you connect with your guides? Think of your questions, because when you say, tell me what I need to know, well, there's a lot you need to know. How do we begin to figure out which one to tell you first? So we then have to go through your records. We have to look and see how each of our decisions will impact you. All right, each of the pieces of information we give you, we look at all of that. So there's a lot going on because we don't want to interfere with your free will. But if you say, I want to know about this particular relationship, how does it benefit me? What do I need to learn about myself in this process here? That's very specific. And so it's much easier for us to give you information. But also more than that is it opens you up to say, I'm prepared for the information. All right? So just keep getting clear about what your questions are. That will also help you to hear answers. So there are two things that we'd like to do right now. One is to do a language of light activation to help everybody kind of ground and clear. But we'd also like to do one to help you open up. Now, don't worry. If you don't want to open up to your guides, you don't have to. This isn't going to open you up in a way that you can't turn off. You've got free will. So we're going to do a couple of rounds of activations, and it's going to help with both of these things, all right?
Okay.
For all of you, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to know what's being said. You don't have to know the specifics. Just relax, open up, listen, and we'll see where we go here. Andakatai ilulure esta asakata ota anda ala arahara umama epo tukoto ilala nanakata hanna ala ala werebe tekata atakata pedestra anda takata ainda la werebe kata kate hisa sokoto ora ara epite kata pedeskate andakata etakata ara epite kata hi la ne epite kata andakoto oi para ainda hasa sokata eta inda ala ara eta kata atakata abitikata. Take a nice deep breath. Itu kata beda beda kata 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 ele beda beda kata inda kata ele beda beda kata ele beda inda la beda kata beda kata duit beda kata la la kata dua kata kata la la kata inda tukura beda beda ala beda wena kata hasa sukuto oda beda beda inda la beda no na kata hasa sukuto o nana ipeta hasa sukuto ora ara ipete inda da bere inda takata bede bede skata inda de were bere no ora bere hisa sukuto ora ara bede kata hasa sukuto ora ara were bere indulo le were bere no ora bere skata inda hai inkata hasa sukuto ora ara ipete. All right, one more round. Take a breath. So this one's really going to help you to open up more to the stellar realms. The other two were helping you to ground a bit more, clear out some things that are kind of running in all your fields. Isto koto ora araba debere koto kota ara hara amona na nehekete hisa ala olo ole ebere enda ara kata anda oe hisa shokoto ora ara ime enana heketa hila ara ibete hisa ala nanu koro ora aimbatai. Isolo ora arabere ento koto emene kata ito ola ebede inda takata tutuere elele bere ebede kata atakata atu ota abede kata atu ora imehe hi to ole be kata anta katai isu kata bere bere inta takata bere kata ora bere indala meni takata hisa kata bere kata hi da koto to bere hasa shukuta apetibi bere kata i ta ataka ole bere kata itikata kata hisa shukuta bere kata i our short answer at the beginning helped you with that question.
Definitely, very much. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Cari. Thank you, Wendy.
All right, take care.
So
wow. Yes, go ahead.
We're noticing a lot of you are feeling a little spacey at the moment. So
yes.
take one more deep breath. Just imagine your essence filling up your body, filling up your container, running this beautiful golden light through every cell, every molecule, until you're this radiant little star. And then see that light extending down to the core of the earth. The consciousness of the earth is a beautiful starlight, and merge your energy with her own. And then imagine this merged energy coming back up into the body through each and every cell, and out to the center of the universe. All right.
Beautiful. So we're getting a lot of thank yous for that. So thank you. And I'm getting the question, why do I feel a loss of energy to an extreme degree every time I have an awareness and feel the healing? It's like I've also lost oxygen and it leaves me exhausted. What is that about?
Sometimes it's about stretching yourself
Okay.
too much. It's like going to the gym and working out and you're tired after the gym. All right? You just worn yourself out. You stretched yourself too much. And so you take a step back to allow the body to prepare, to repair, to heal, and to build. And this is what happens when you all start connecting to the higher realms. You might feel exhausted. And then each time you go up, you're going to be able to go up a little higher and sustain it a little longer. So it's not unusual at all. It's very typical. But just, you wouldn't expect yourself to go to the gym and run if you hadn't worked out for a very long time. Your legs are going to be sore and tired the next day, but you keep doing it and you're building up strength. Same thing energetically.
Right. Someone was talking about when they, in their meditations, that they get nauseous and can't, is that the same kind of thing?
Then what we see with the nausea is that there's suppressed emotion.
Okay.
And it's allowing for some of that suppressed emotion to surface, and so it's solar plexus stuff. It's where it's being stored.
Okay. I have an interesting question for you, directed for you, the P's. What do you do or experience as a non-physical with no needs?
Well, we experience our conversations with you. We experience a lot of love, a lot of joy. We explore. We're working with beings throughout the universe. We're connecting with them. It's a different existence. You all think that there are things that you have to do constantly. For us, it's all about being. We just are.
Yes.
So it gets a little tricky to explain. And that's something that we started to talk about earlier that we never really finished. It's, your measure of success is through the masculine. You're finding that, you're starting to honor the feminine on your planet, and you're starting to see it just in what's going on in the Me Too movement and all of your other all of your explorations of equality. You're starting to see the need for the feminine to come back. But even in your lives, it's really important that you take time first for your state of being, because your state of being will inform everything that you do. And if you aren't adjusting your state of being to a higher state of being, then this low frequency is going to be infused in everything you do. So it's really, really important. In a linear perceived reality such as yours, the feminine always without exception comes first in the process of creation. In the higher realms where we are, it's concurrent. It all goes on at once. We create through both expressions of duality at the same time. But you don't. So if you want to stand in your power as a creative being, you have to work with your state of being first. You have to imagine the frequencies that you want to embody and experience in your day. So before your feet hit the floor in the morning, we would say, imagine how you want to feel. How do you want to feel as you go through your day? And you might just pick one or two words, because if you pick too many, then you can't really observe them. You can't really pay attention. You're not really getting clear on the frequency, or you don't recognize it when it shows up. So you might want to feel joyous. You might want to feel calm for your day. And then keep resetting
throughout the day. And then acknowledge the things that get reflected back to you that are calm, that are, if that's what you want to feel, or joyous, or whatever you're asking for. Acknowledge it where it shows up. It might not look the way that you think it should, or you're expecting it to. So look for the small things first, especially if it's a frequency that you haven't been embodying lately. So, it's going to be subtle probably at the beginning.
Yes.
You all say you want to connect with the higher realms. Well, the higher realms are subtle realms. They're not gross. They're not these really dense frequencies. Your reality is very dense, gross, obvious frequencies. So channeling or reading the Akashic realms or even the process of creation, it's all about the subtle frequencies. And once you learn to read the subtle frequencies, it's like learning how to read as a child, a book, then all of these books filled with information become available to you once you learn how to read. It's the same thing when you learn to read subtle frequencies. The Akashic realm opens up to you. So their universal history, how the universe is structured, all of that opens up to you because you've learned to read the subtle frequencies.
Yes. I want to take this in just a bit of a different direction. We have a question for you from Alex. Can you please speak about ways to ascend to the 3D program of going to get a job to earn an income? How can we best break free from the old paradigm so we can trust our power of attraction from moment to moment?
So the first thing we would say to you is to look at your judgment about it, because your judgment of something will keep you engaged with it. So if you think that having a job for money is wrong, then you're going to stay engaged with it, and you're going to create suffering for yourself. That's not to say that you can't create a different version of reality, but for most of you, when you are desiring something new, it's to avoid something old, a pain of something old. So another example of that is money. You all say, I want money. I don't want to be poor. You want money because you don't want the pain and suffering of being poor. It's not, I want money because I'm just curious what that abundance can do. How can I share that with the world? It's not a pure curiosity. It's an avoidance of the other frequency, the other side of the coin. And that will keep you engaged in the struggle. That will keep you engaged with that thing that you think you're avoiding, or that you say, oh, I really want this positive thing, but I want it to avoid the negative. That will keep you engaged with the negative. So that's the very first thing we would say to you, and that's what's going to allow you to remove yourself. You all are starting to work on these new processes. We would also invite you to change your perspective of what that is that you think you need to do. Money is just energy. That's it. It's energy. It doesn't have any value as far as positive and negative goes. It's only what you assign to it. So if you think about doing something that is of service, I want to be of service, the way that your current system is structured requires some sort of energetic exchange. Bartering is the same exchange. It's just not paper. All right? You're still exchanging. It's a conditional exchange of energy. You are not going to move out of that system anytime soon because you have not learned to be unconditional. You might change the kind of system that you use. You might go to bartering, but that's still a conditional exchange. I'll give you this for that. You've got to change your identity, and that's seeing yourself as an unconditional being of divine light and love. When you just give and you trust that you will be divinely supported, that's when you move out of the need to have a monetary system, some sort of exchange or barter system. So look at your judgments of the system. Where are you being conditional in your exchange of energy? All right, with loved ones, with friends, with family, with strangers. Where are those conditions? Where are those judgments coming up? We would also say, as far as that job goes, find a job that just that you love, and find a way that you feel that you can be of service. And the irony is then that the money comes. The money will flow because it's energy. All right, and you can't just give out energy constantly. You have to receive it as well. You can't just receive it. You also have to give it, because any sort of blockage in
that cycle, all right, will create issues in your life. All right, there has to be an even exchange of energy.
Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
That exchange, right.
No, it has to happen. It absolutely has to happen because that's balance. If you want to have a balanced life, that's part of the universal flow of energy. Now, it doesn't have to come from the same source. So in other words, if someone gives you a gift, it doesn't mean you have to turn around and give them something of equal measure back. You can then receive from one person and give to another. All right, so that exchange of energy is a constant flow. You are an abundant being. When you start to perceive a finite universe or align with yourself as a finite being, then there are limitations. There's a limited pool of resources, and that's when suffering starts. When you identify with the infinite universe, then there will always be resources available to you, even on the planet. And that's a hard one for you all because you say, well, we have finite resources on the planet. That's because of how you're using them. You're not using them in balance because you're identifying with the limitation. You're not acting from a higher level of consciousness to how you're engaging with the earth. You're not working in a way that keeps the ecosystem balanced. But when you start to heal yourselves, when you start to love yourselves, so will Mother Earth heal. She's a reflection of you collectively. But you will find that she will have infinite resources. You will find ways of working that are in balance with Mother Nature that do have infinite amounts of energy because it is in flow with the natural rhythm of the universe. Your current resources that you use are not in balance with the universe.
Right.
All right?
Yes. Yes. And I'm glad that we touched on that because we have quite a few people who wrote in about this abundance factor. And so I'm glad we were able to touch on that. And as you just spoke about being of service, I have kind of an interesting thing someone wrote in. Russia, she said, my husband lives by the motto, love everyone, serve everyone, remember source. She says, this is great, but I don't have a call to serve anyone, especially humans who are asleep. Can you speak about this? What if someone is feeling that way?
Well, it just means that there's part of you that's cut off.
Yeah.
We would say go inside and find something that you're passionate about, something that excites you, all right? Finding it in a passion. For many of you, you look around at the state of the world and you say, oh, this is a mess. Why bother? All right? Why bother? It's not helping. And so it's really knowing that in part what you see in the world is due to your programs. You are constantly being conditioned in your media to look to the negative. It's your fear report. The nightly news is your fear report. Here's the fear you should engage with. Even in your alternative media, it's the same thing. Here's all the negative stuff that's going on in the world. You're not hearing all the positive reports of the nice action that someone took. All right? You might get one or two. All right? Someone pulled someone from a burning building. But you're not hearing all the positive stuff that goes on a daily basis. All right? It's your fear report. So when you start to identify with more of yourself as this divine being of light, as you love and appreciate yourself, as you are kind and giving to yourself, because most of you aren't, because you're conditioned to do. You're not conditioned to just being. You think it's a waste of time. As you said before, your state of being informs everything that you do. So if you're not spending time with your state of being, then you are, in effect, cutting off half your energy source, all right? And what you are building is going to be of a low vibrational nature. And if it's not, then it's by happenstance. You're not consciously directing it. And there's far more power available to you if you consciously direct it. So if you're not spending time being and deciding, I want to feel engaged, I want to feel passionate, I want to feel joyous,
then it's going to be hard to access those frequencies. And what you see in the world isn't going to be any of those things. So take time and imagine what that would feel like to feel passionate. Right now, we invite you all. What does passion feel like in your body? Imagine it right now. What happens physically? Does the body heat up? Does it relax? Does it go cold? Does it get tense? Does it tingle? Does it feel flat? What happens physically when you imagine feeling passionate?
Yeah.
Do any thoughts?
Right. No, I think all of this is very helpful. I'm wondering if perhaps we can do another activation that would benefit, based on what you're feeling from the community or the group right now. What would be most beneficial, do you feel?
Well, there are a couple things. One, hope, because we find that some of you are feeling a bit depressed, that some of you are feeling like there's no end in sight. And again, we would take you back to it's all in what you choose to see in the world. So what do you focus on? What are you focused on in your own life? The more joy you set as an intention that you want to experience, the more joyous experiences you're going to have in your life. You'll see people who are more joyous, expanded, excited, hopeful. But that starts with you and what you're attracting in. What you pulse out is what gets reflected back to you as your reality. Even something that's on the periphery, that's part of your creation, because your vibrational alignment will allow you to see it or not see it. You could walk by something on the street and never notice it. If you're aligned with it, you notice it. So even that argument that you're seeing the couple have on the corner, if you're in alignment with it, if there's a judgment you have, then you're going to see the argument. If not, you're not even going to glance that way. So everything you see in the world is of your own making. So if you don't like what you see in the world, go inside. Change where you're vibrating, what you want to see and what you want to experience in the world. You can stand in peace in the midst of chaos. The world doesn't have to change for you to be happy. You have to change in order to be happy. You have to imagine those frequencies first. You say, well, I don't have anything externally happening that would make me happy. No, emotions come first, and then they get reflected in your reality and get reinforced. You all forget that initial stage, that state of being stage. All right, that internal stage is creating and driving your reality. So, hope for change. We just shared yesterday with Wendy a free video on change. How to open up to change. Change, even if it's positive, can feel exceptionally challenging for you all because you're afraid you're going to have to change the story that you tell yourself of who you are. How is it going to impact your relationships? Are you going to succeed or fail? Are you up to the task, the challenge? So even positive change can elicit a lot of fear. But you have to open up to it, saying, I want these things, I want to experience it, and you have to keep going back to it, all right, multiple times a day to say, yes, I'm going to embody. What would change feel like in my body right now? What would joy feel like? What would laughter feel like? And use your imagination. It's so powerful. Your imagination is so powerful. It shapes your reality because your body doesn't know the difference between real and imaginary because in some ways your entire reality is imaginary. All right? It's not real. It's not really who you are. It's just a character that you've drawn up for yourself to have a lifetime's worth of experience. All right? But then you leave the stage, as an actor does, and you go back and you talk about the evening's performance, the lifetime's performance. All right? So we're going to do an activation to help you open up to hope, that things can be different, that you can perceive things differently. People don't have to change. You have to change. And then we would say change, being comfortable with change, and then opening you up to inspiration, to be inspired. All right?
Love it.
So take a deep breath. We'll see where we go. ora ara ibidibishkata takata alo wana mene e patakata ala ware berishkata inda takata wemana haikata
hala aro ore mene shukata ore e pata bidi shukade bidi nwa mana e kuto o da bidi shukata entakata iza oja etakata hasa alwara ara emene e sa shokoto ora ara e handa akoto ora ara hisa shukata ela ahana ana ikte hi pata kora ara e pata shukata ana hisa na halora hi pata kata patesta. Take a nice deep breath. Iso whatever no one shkatanda to kotoera whatever shkatanda kotora ida da kotora mane mene shkata ndakata ndala whatever shkate he san shkotora ande ingatai he sa ala anda to kola nene ta takata he san shkotora ai hikate he san shkotora are I open to change with grace and ease. Ishakato oda abedishkata bidikata bidishkata bidishkata antakata atukulo ore bidishkata he tatas the bidishkata bidibidi nuana nekata hara ruana takata bidisha edwe ebidibidi bara ibera bidibida I would be tukutoy in the larabe in the dua bara nuana nakata he dado epetakata takatai he sashakato lele wara barashkata he sashakata ebidibidishkata ita takata atakata bura bidibidishkata bidibidishkata takata bidibidishkata bidibidi wadikata ita tatakoto bidibidishkata bidibidi he sashakata atakata. Take a deep breath. Whatever it do, in that way, it is that or I after the average, whatever in the weather, I in Dakata with the Piticata in the Piticata took or I in a hekata. He's a shukata or I bet it is in the Takata. He's a shukata petishkata and the Kata, Eli, whatever it is, he in the Katara, Ekatai. I open to new potentials and I allow my passion to flow. Istakot oide, when the kata do it, but the Bidishkata Petakata Petikata. Even if you look at it in the Takata Petishkata, do it, the Bidibidi, but the Bidishkata, whatever the Bidishkata, Bidibidi, in that Takata, he's a Shukata, Bidibidi, in Dakata, Takata Petishkata, he's a Shokata, Bidibidi, and no way, but Shukata, Hasa Shukata, Bidibidi. All right, take another nice deep breath. So, one other thing that we invite you to do here is to play. Just be creative for the sake of being creative, not for any outcome. You did this as children, and if you're feeling stuck and you need to reinvigorate yourself, you want to stoke your passion, you need to stoke your creativity. The moment you judge something to say, this creative project isn't good enough, or it's supposed to look different, you quell that fire. So you just need to explore your creative endeavors, and we'd say do it every day, 10 to 15 minutes, whether that's you gardening or painting or drawing or singing or dancing or any other creative activity you can think of. Do it without expectation, 10 to 15 minutes a day. If you're someone who is having a difficult time meditating because your mind is always running, this will help you. Because when you are purely creative without analyzing it, you put yourself back in your heart center. When you're heart centered, you're not in the ego mind. The consciousness of the ego isn't running. So it will help you. So you can meditate, all right? You can do things that will help calm the system. But just be creative. Just play. Have fun with it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And we have a lot of people just extending their gratitude for the activations that you just provided. So thank you for that. And and either perhaps the P's or Wendy, I want to talk about, you've created these Galactic Light Code courses for those who want to take this a little bit further. I'd like to talk about that. And I don't know if perhaps you can just quickly describe the Galactic Light Codes that are involved in this. Can you explain that briefly to us? I'd love to hear it through you.
So we'll talk about Galactic Light Codes, and then we'll let Wendy talk about the rest of it. But the codes, we've infused them. They're multiple tiered pieces of information. So even though you look at the code, there may be part of you that
has visions at that time. You might have physical sensations and frequencies. So these codes are comprised of light, sound, sacred geometry, and cosmic information. And you're getting it all at once. It's like receiving packets of information. And then when you're ready, you will unpack the information and access it as you are prepared to, so as not to create a disruption in your life. And sometimes, you can experience it and pack it away, and you might not be ready for it for a little while. And then you open it up, all right? And then the information that you want is there. So the soul is in control, even with these activations. If you're not ready, you're not going to access anything that you're not ready for. So they help you to realign your resonance. They help you to align your energy field. Your energy field is everything in the process of creation. So, in the process of creation, we'll just give you a brief overview here. You are selecting frequency. You're deciding, I want to feel joyous. And then you're embodying it. So you're starting in the feminine with your state of being, and you move into an active state of doing, which is aligning with frequency and then pulsing it out. All right? You're sending that signal out to the universe. And then you're moving back to a feminine state to observe, where am I? What's going on? And then you say, oh, that frequency over there, that's what I was asking for. That looks exciting. And then you move into the masculine to step out to it, engage with it. So then you take action in the physical world. So there's a constant oscillation back and forth between the feminine and the masculine. And so when it comes to creating anything that you want, you have to start with that frequency first, and that's what these codes help you to do. They're not helping you to break down the old. You're not putting energy and focus on the old, but you're putting it into what you want. And the more frequently you do that, the stronger that frequency gets sent out to the universe, and the faster it shows up as part of your reality. The more time you're spending in embodying that subtlety of frequency, the more you begin to recognize it as it appears in front of you. So you'll say, oh, you know what, I've been asking for something that might allow me to be more creative. And I never thought of doing this thing over here, but here's this opportunity, so I'm going to engage with it. You might not have noticed it before because you weren't attuned to the subtleties of that frequency, but you've been imagining it over and over, and so then you find that it's easier to engage. And so as you work with these codes, as you work with it, typically what we recommend is that you work with a single code 3 times a day for 10 to 15 minutes for 3 days in a row. Now what that will do is as you start to make these connections, you will start to have shifts in the cellular structure after 3 days of this repeated energy and this focus. So that's really how these codes are working, and so will the activations. All right.
Beautiful.
So we hope that helps answer that.
That was beautiful, and the comments of gratitude continue to flow in. So I want to pass that along. And thank you for being here with us today, and for just being of service and of help to all of us here. So thank you.
It's our pleasure.
We love you.
And much love to you as well. So feel free to connect with us directly. You don't need Wendy. And until we hear from you, we're sending much love, much gratitude, appreciation, and well wishes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Wendy. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Oh, Wendy, are you? Do you recall like everything that was shared, or how does that work for you at this point?
I'm present in the moment, but it's a bit like a lucid dream. I don't remember much of it after a while. I mean, I can vaguely tell you right now what we talked about. Ask me in an hour, and I'm not so sure.
It was a lot of good stuff. And what I'm getting so much in the webcast, Wendy, is just the simplicity and the practicality of the expression is really helpful, because your delivery and the P's delivery is so clear and as I mentioned, practical, and it's easy to understand. So people are really appreciating that, and so it's wonderful. And I want to talk about what you've created, Wendy, because I know a lot of times people will hear this and they think, okay, I want to take this further. So with regard to reclaiming our authentic selves, you created a beautiful mini courses, 4 Galactic Light Code mini courses that I'd love for you to share what's in them.
Sure. So yeah, I call them mini courses because it's a little more than just listening to a recording. So there's some engagement there. And the first one is called Creating Balance. And this one was a little different. I think we've created 5 of these mini courses, and this last one, it has 2 galactic light codes. We got into, they were telling me what needed to happen with balance, and the first one is learning to balance the feminine and the masculine energy, how to work with both of those things. And I know they just talked a little bit about it here, but also in balancing our perception of gender roles, letting go of any limiting beliefs we might have that we're capable of doing or not doing something because we're in a male or a female body. So it's providing with a little healing with that, and then that includes 2 language of light activations, and then 2 affirmations and meditations, as well as a PDF worksheet to work with. And that just helps you to create better balance as far as in the process of creation, and then learning to be, all right, and not always having to do. And then the second one is releasing the victim perspective, and this is really how to stand in your power, to not feel victimized that, oh, this horrible thing happened to me, but really seeing that everything we experience shows us that we are expressing or suppressing our own divine nature. And if it's something that we feel victimized by, it's showing us how we've suppressed our divine nature, and it's showing us a way out. Then we need to do the opposite of that thing. And so this one really focuses on that and really owning everything as a part of your creation. And that includes a galactic light code, a language of light activation, a PDF worksheet as well. And then we have restoration, which is really learning to take care of ourselves, and some really practical, simple things that we can do. I mean, nothing is anything extraordinary. These are things that most of us probably know how to do. We're just not doing it. And so they really kind of walk us through how to nurture ourselves, something that we've kind of forgotten. And again, that's the Galactic Light Code, the Language of Light Activation, the meditation, and the PDF worksheet. And then the last one is Clarity of Purpose. A lot of us think that there is just this one thing that we're supposed to be doing with our lives, and if we haven't found that one thing, then there's a problem, or we might have found that thing that we think we're supposed to be doing, and we no longer feel like we're driven to do it. And what the guides say is it's not always so much about what we're doing, but the state of being that we're carrying into everything that we do, and that we'll have different things as we go throughout our life that we'll feel drawn to do. And it's really kind of looking at the frequencies and the things that we want to experience. And so vibrationally, because, the universe is going to take care of the form and put us in those situations where we can, 1, have the greatest soul growth, and 2, be of the greatest service. So we have to figure out what frequencies we want to embody. And that has the channeling and the Galactic Light Code, the Language of Light Activation, and, all of these have the same basic components, but the Creating Balance actually has an extra set.
Right. I'm so glad that you had the purpose piece in here, because there were quite a few people who wrote in the webcast, and we tend to get that on every call. People, it's a big one. What is my purpose? What is my mission? I can't figure it out. And I love what you just shared about it. I'm sure there's more in here. So there are a lot of MP3s that people can listen to again and again, and thank you for creating this, because I love that there's the MP3s, there's the light codes included, of course, the language of light activations, PDF worksheets, so all of that. And for those of you who want to take a look at that right now, it's at straighttalkforthesoul.com. Click on the marketplace and then Wendy's beautiful picture, and it'll be right there. And we'll also send that to you in your replay email a little bit later today. And Wendy, thank you so much for creating that. And thank you for everything today. I'm so grateful and honored that you chose to come back and play with me here, and all of us, play with all of us here. I hope that you enjoyed it as we did.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure, and I really appreciate that you've created such a wonderful space for everybody to play and to connect, because that is not always an easy thing to do today. So thank you so much for that. And, I want to thank everybody else also for just showing up and being their authentic self, and, and for you to do that, to create a space. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Wendy. I'm sending you so much love, and I can feel all the love in the community just flowing your way. So thank you, and to everyone who's joined us and who will join us and listen to this replay, thank you for the gift of your time and your light and your presence and your love. If you are live with us and you've joined us by computer, we would love to hear from you. Please send us your comments and your feedback from today's show. I know many of you already have, and we really thank you for that. And then, as always, give yourself the opportunity to really bathe in these frequencies and the activations by listening again if you're called to do so. I get so much feedback for people who experience something different each time, more insights, more layers, different frequencies available every time. So I am sending waves and waves of love and light and gratitude directly from my heart to yours. May you feel it, receive it, and offer it to those you encounter today or tonight, wherever you are in the world. Please join us, by the way, in our Facebook group. It is a private group, and we will accept you right away. It's a beautiful space to be. So join us there. And until next time, as always, please give yourself full permission to shine instead of shrink, express instead of suppress, and own that amazing, powerful glow of yours. I'll see you back here in this playground of light next time. Bye-bye, everybody.